Bonsoir, good evening, mesdames, messieurs, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live Zoom Q&A for our International Science Fiction Short Film Showcase of 2021. You have just seen an array of mind-blowing shorts from around the world, and I'm thrilled to say that we have a group of the filmmakers here with us today to discuss their work. Please give it up for a super talented pack of artists. Scream in your living rooms. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So going with everyone's numerical values, which is a weird way to go, but the only organic way, sort of organic way to go with a virtual Q&A with so many participants. If you can each introduce yourselves and name your project.
Hi.
We both have a one. Sorry, go ahead. This is Rhona. She's amazing. Rhona Rees.
Hi, I'm Rhona Rees. I wrote, starred in, and executive produced FREYA.
And I'm Camille Hollett-French. I directed FREYA.
Hi, I'm Brent Howard. I co-wrote and directed Mark II.
Hi everyone, I'm Georgina here, Georgina Jenkins in Canberra, Australia. I wrote, produced and directed The Girl on the Moon.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanny Causse. I directed Rachel's Don't Run.
Everyone, I'm Tony Hipwell. I'm the director and co-producer on Standing Woman.
Hey, I'm Max G. I'm the writer and co-producer on Standing Woman.
Hi everybody, my name is Carlo Ballauri and I am the director, producer and writer of The Recycling.
Thanks. Starting with Rhona and Camille, if you can go into a little bit of just the genesis of the films, the roots of your projects.
Yeah, I'll let Rhona take this one because she wrote the puppy.
All right.
The concept started from a conversation about programming ethics in AI and how you would choose what's right and wrong. And I then was just inspired to write a piece for the Harold Greenberg Fund, which we were lucky enough to secure the funding from, Harold Greenberg Fund and Creative BC. So started as programming ethics, and then as soon as I had the smart toilet idea, the whole film changed into more of a solo journey into body autonomy, and basically my nightmares come to life on screen.
No biggie.
Yeah. And then
Camille, do you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, sorry, finish your thought, Rhona.
I was going to say, when Camille came on board, we did a lot of sort of fleshing out of the world together because, you know, luckily she's a sci-fi head. So you want to add to that?
I often say my favorite era is the not too distant future. So it definitely was such an something right off the top was this duality visually that I wanted to create of like far enough away but close enough that it's terrifying. And Rhona and I have spoken about this a lot, and it's something that I was able to identify in every single wonderful film today. I'd be like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a recurring thread through the block.
Totally. I love
a central thematic.
Yeah.
It also sadly was inspired by what was going on in the States in regards to abortion rights. Mm-hmm. And then right before we had our world premiere in Calgary, that was when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. And then suddenly we find these rights actually being more at risk than I ever thought they would be. So it's one of those things where you want your films to be relevant, but in the case of ours, like, kind of wish it wasn't so relevant.
I mean, sadly, I think particularly with the United States, it's always going to be a topical kind of a warning film. Mm-hmm. And it's astonishing. I love that bit where the app informs her that self-harm while pregnant's a federal offense. I mean, it's just chilling.
Yeah.
And it's like a great detail in having the app constantly use, well, all of her apps use language that chips away at her self-esteem. referring to her as obese, referring to her as geriatric. I mean, it's very powerful.
But the crazy thing is that if you are if I was pregnant now, I would be labeled by the doctors as an obese geriatric pregnancy. Like, that's not a.
You would officially qualify for that classification?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where's the bar for geriatric now?
Over 35.
Really? Geriatric officially begins at 36?
In pregnancies, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, right. Maybe. Wow.
And
I wasn't aware.
We may as well pack it in, Rhona.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done here, people. We're gone. See you later.
This is our swan song. Bye.
Thank you and good night.
Yes.
Okay. So moving down to Brent with Mark II.
Hey everybody. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. This is actually the first Q&A I've ever done ever.
And you're in a hotel right now, right?
I'm in a hotel right now. Yeah. I'm shooting my next project Monday, and so I'm in a remote location, and I'm staying at the campground. But right now, I need Wi-Fi service in order to do that, and the campground doesn't have it. So this hotel has graciously given me Wi-Fi, so I'm appreciative of that. So yeah, my film is Mark II. Yeah, the writing process was pretty long. It took, I want to say, like 1.5 to 2 years to come up with the idea. My buddy and I, Pride St. Clair, the other co-writer, we just wanted to make something cool. We love sci-fi. The previous short film that we worked on was sci-fi related. And so, yeah, our origins is like, we just want to make something cool. And so where this story really kind of like gelled is when he brought up an episode of Ghost in the Shell, when it was like a cartoon series. And so in one of the episodes, one of the characters gets like some sort of like modification, and everybody, like every one of his friends is like, "What are you doing, man?" But he loves it. He absolutely loves it. And so that's kind of like where the idea of Mark II started. And so it kind of continued developing in terms of like the main character when I called up my boy John Ennis, where I don't know about you guys, but he's in like everything. He's in so many shorts and he's so good. He shows up in like TV shows every now and again. He's yeah, he's a really great guy and great actor. And I met him in a movie, a cinema lobby 4 years prior. I just bumped into him and I got his number, and I'm like, I love your stuff, and got his number, and 4 years later I called him up and he said yes right away. So that was pretty magical. And the kind of the format of the short, what we really wanted to do was we love short films that have like a setup and punchline, but we also love shorts that have like an emotional impact. So that was a real challenge, and so I believe we achieved that. We have like we have a setup and punchline, and I feel like, you know, you feel something at the end. So
yeah. I mean, it's a really funny satire, and absolutely there's a genuine sincerity through it all.
Yeah. And then the world that we created is this kind of like timeline that doesn't exist. And we took inspiration from like Blade Runner and Alien, where they've made sequels, but they've like kept the this moment in time. Like they've kept this like alternate like reality. And I just think that's so fun, and it opens up possibilities of, you know, like the audience doesn't really have a perception of how this story relates to their own lives. They're just basically able to give themselves over to the story and kind of creating a bubble around this story. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool idea, and I'm glad we incorporated it.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah.
Georgina.
Hi, I'm just really honored to be here amongst all these great filmmakers. I love all your films. I could talk about all of them, but since we just heard about Mark too, I just want to say I love the ending. I just love how he's just like looking in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, he's going to freak out. And he just says like, oh, is it spoiler alert? Am I allowed to spoiler alert?
Oh yeah, that's why I'm presuming anyone watching has already, I hope, has seen the films. If not,
Yeah.
It's on them. Please speak freely.
Yeah. And he sees himself and he's just like this Wall-E robot, like not even like human-like. And he's like, I'm beautiful. And I was like, oh, I love it. Oh, and I just love the retro old computer screens and that whole nondescript time frame, you know, fabulous. So I'm Georgina from Canberra, Australia. My film is The Girl on the Moon, and the genesis of The Girl on the Moon was very much just like a vision I had. I don't know, I think I woke up from a dream. I'm not really sure, but I just had this vision of a girl looking out the window at the earth. And I was like, who is this girl? Where is she? Why is she there? And it was just this real sense of disconnection and longing. And I just felt it was something I really wanted to explore. And then, of course, the world changed. And I felt like all the themes that I was talking about were just really relevant. And I just felt like we've taken so much for granted. What we've taken for granted is that what our humanity is about, our connection. Mm-hmm. And we've just spent, you know, the last 18 months kind of coming to grips with that and dealing with social isolation and not being able to get to our family or go to the places that mean something to us. And so then the story of Luna was very much about, imagine being the only human who's never been to Earth. Like, what would that be like? It would be just incredibly disconnecting. So then I was working with an Indigenous writer on another project, and we just decided that Luna should be Indigenous because, you know, Indigenous people, when they're disconnected from country, it's very emotionally and spiritually difficult. So this is kind of taking that to a global level now. Imagine being disconnected from all of humanity and all of the earth. So that's The Girl on the Moon. It's a proof of concept for a TV series that I've got funding to run a writer's room for. So I'm really excited to continue Luna's story.
Excellent. Thank you. Number 4, Joanny.
Yeah. So the idea took a while and pretty fast at the same time. I was playing with I read an article like a couple of years ago about people who work at Facebook, I think, who spend days like censoring content. So they got like image back to back and they have to choose whether or not it needs to be censored. And I was really interested in that idea and that concept, but I couldn't find a story to weave that in. And so for years I tried to force it in a story. I couldn't find anything. And then one day with friends, we were talking about another project with a priest and AI, and we were thinking about doing something like that. And then kind of as a joke, we were talking about how it would be funny to have human beings basically interpret AI, become AI, right? And so that whole idea started as a joke, and then eventually I was like, well, maybe there's something there. So I kind of thought about this, and then with Stephanie, the co-writer, we kind of came up with that story within like 2 weeks after that. So we wrote it really quick, and then we were supposed to shoot another short, but then COVID hit. So we're like, oh, well, you know, that one can be done because it's only one person in one location. So we thought about it that way. And then everything went really fast from then on. But the whole thing started kind of as a joke a little bit. But then I really wanted to find, obviously, a lot more meaning and have a stronger story and characters and a connection, a missed connection, I guess you could say. So we developed it from there. But so yeah, really the whole thing was about human and AI, but the human you don't really see who make AI, because you always hear about the impact on people, but never about the people making it really, or on the day-to-day, you know, basis working on it. So that really was part of the genesis of the project.
It's incredible to think that something that it began almost as a joke and ended up being really one of the most devastating films that I've seen this year. I mean, it's such an absolute heartbreak of a film.
I wanted to find something to connect, well, again, misconnect the characters that was obviously a lot deeper, like on a human level and a human connection that, you know, and grief is one of those things, right? I feel like we all experience it. And you would think that there is a blueprint for it, but we all experience it differently. We all deal with it very differently, even though it's kind of universal. So when I found that connection, I thought it was a good way to bridge the gap between those two human beings with the machine in the middle. So, yeah.
I mean, it's so especially ghostly when you have your lead delivering her lines. And the AI is repeating her words with different inflections, and they're really grounded, heartfelt, revelatory things that she's saying to a person who ultimately is frustrated and annoyed by the messy complications of even a fleeting, genuine connection.
Right. Yeah, it's really upset that he's not hearing what he wants. Right.
Yeah, what he came to hear.
Yeah. So that was part of the project too, to think about all this AI, and we all pretty much wrote about robots and AI in a way or another. It's they're all catering towards our needs and what we want to hear and what we want to do. When life, you don't always hear what you want and what you need to. Sometimes you need to hear something else. And I feel like AI is going in the direction of like pleasing the customers at all times. So that was part of the process.
It's a product,
as well. So. Right, exactly.
I mean, did the actress? I mean, I'm Terrell. I don't have her name handy right now, but she brings so much.
Barbieri. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sarah Barbieri.
Okay. So, I mean, did Sarah first? Did you have her in mind when you were collaborating on the script with your screenwriter? Did she improvise some of it on set? Because she really brings so much gravity to it.
Oh, she killed it. I mean,
the line readings, but also it's the way she uses her eyes.
Yeah, we did. So it was a casting with a casting agent, and one of the good thing, bad thing, I guess, about the pandemic is that the casting was all done remotely.
Right. Sure.
So I met her in person for the first time on set. So I only saw her through the screen, which, in a way, was kind of like with the concept was kind of working a little bit. But I mean, she killed it on the audition. The first round, I was just like, okay, well. I mean, that's pretty much her. And then we only had one night to shoot it. So it was
all shot in one night.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on her to deliver. And that was really stressful, I think, for everybody. But
no doubt.
Half of the takes in the films are first takes.
That's incredible.
Yeah. She really
she was fully in it.
Yeah. I couldn't probably
talk about instincts, or just connecting with material.
Yeah, she understood really well what we wanted to do too. Like that's always important to me. Like people really understand who the character is, and she really got it right away. So it was perfect. She was perfect for it. And she delivered. On first take almost every time. So yeah.
Am I on mute? I'm not sure. Because I just wanted to say the vulnerability that she was psyching herself up to speak to him and be her genuine self, and that vulnerability. And then when she gets shut down, it was just so poignant, you know. You captured something beautiful there.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love that shot, like watching her break on screen and just so uncomfortable, like we can't get anywhere.
Yeah, it's long.
No, but it was, oh my God, it was beautiful because we've all been there, right? Where we're like in a room and stuck and just knowing that we're like losing our humanity and you can't do anything about it. Like when that moment happened, I was like, oh my God, this is.
And it's like you said earlier, Camille, it's like this world that's in the not too distant future where what people want is they don't want humanity. They just want, the programmed, just get it done. He was like, I don't want to hear about how fast you run. I don't want to, you stupid laugh. I'm like, oh my God, that's just devastating. Is this where we're going?
Particularly the fact that she shares this information about her mother's death and as a bonding thing, as something that should be almost a solidarity symbol, and it frustrates them all the more. I mean, it's just, yeah, but it's her reaction, the way she conveys that disappointment. It's incredible. And my heart was in my throat when that ended. I mean, I stopped watching anything for about a half hour afterwards, just to not chase it down with 10 other films, But anyways, yeah, outstanding work.
Thank you for her as well.
So, Tony, Standing Woman.
Sure. Yeah, I think probably the best thing is to hand over to Max first for the genesis of the story.
Cool. Okay, so I was doing some research in Japan, and I came across this story by Yasutaka Susui. So he's a fairly famous Japanese writer. If anyone's watched the anime Paprika, that's based off a novel by him. If anyone's also watched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, that's also based off his work. So I read this short story and it really connected with me. And I guess for the fun, because I just had this image in my head of how it could work in a British setting, I just wrote this short. And then Tony and I have wanted to work together for quite a while on something. So I just sent it to him as I've written this, it really connected. I think it works for a time that we're in with the sort of politics that were going on in Britain at that now still ongoing. And in the world, I think, with this space where perhaps we could see an insidious kind of governmental system that looks really nice. And as always with a dystopia, it has this kind of utopian ideal, why not, instead of imprisoning people and, having to waste these resources, we could turn them into trees and then the world will be beautiful and it will be better for the environment and all of these things that actually underneath is something pretty unpleasant. And it's bringing something like sort of capital punishment back. So Tony read it and was like, can we make this? And because it's an adaptation, this then involved kind of a fun, lengthy, exciting process of trying to acquire the rights to this film, which is interesting and a little bit different in Japan. I was very lucky that I knew a few people in the industry, so I could get to the publishing company for this author. And it started a barrage of emails at some poor guy there in the company being like, yeah, we really want to make this film. Yes, we're this small British company. We want to do this thing. And here is how much we can pay. And I think if the guy could have sent back an email that was like a big laugh at the minuscule amount, I think we probably would have got that. But instead, he actually gave us the time, and I said, no, I think we're really into this. He said, okay, if you can get a letter in Japanese to the author, I'll send it to him. And if he says yes, you can do the project. So I was like, challenge accepted. I have many Japanese friends. We can do this. And, long story short, we got the rights to do this short film adaptation, to do something that was a British set. And then we kind of started to work on the project. And there were a lot of translations along the way. The script had to be approved by the author. So the screenplay was written, and then it was translated, and then it was sent, and then we spent a very agonizing time, right, Tony, hoping that nothing was going to go wrong there. And I think as soon as Tony was involved, we got really into the themes of this and starting to think about sort of propaganda filmmaking. And I think Tony has a really interesting take on this. So I'll hand over to Tony now to kind of continue the narrative.
Just one quick thing I just want to just jump in and say, Max, yeah, sorry for calling on Tony in the singular there. I was looking on the screen, I was like, number 5, Tony. I absolutely did not mean to.
No worries at all.
Cheers. Yeah, Tony.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, after Max got the screenplay to me, I just fell in love with the world. It was just such an interesting concept, and particularly just that idea of which you find, I think, in a lot of authoritarian governments where they tend to weaponize a lot of platforms that social movements are trying to use. So things like climate change, obviously the idea that a authoritarian government would use that against the people, I thought was a very interesting component of that as well. And so tied to that, I kind of got very interested in how propaganda works, again, typically in a lot of authoritarian regimes, or how it can be very easy for someone to stray into that. I enjoy a lot of other satire from filmmakers like Paul Verhoeven as well, or Chris Morris, and things like Black Mirror, all these different things, which kind of, again, in that thing that we've been talking about, things which are scarily close, even though they're just around the corner. But again, it feels like it's something that we are very close to, and something within that crystallized when I was I was in Berlin for a trip, and I went to the Berlin Film Museum, and there was an exhibit there where you'd go into this room full of cabinets, and if you opened up any one of the cabinets, there was a film playing from a Jewish filmmaker, and every one of those filmmakers had perished in the Holocaust. And I've just found that immensely affecting, just the idea that those people had tried to work within the system. They tried to be good citizens, and despite that, the system had still failed them. And so the idea of someone trying to position themselves as a good citizen and still feeling very much in peril, because Tom in the film, despite the fact it's not him that's been planted, it's his wife, I think he feels the spotlight on himself, that he could very much be next in it. So the idea of expanding this character's inner life a little bit more, I think, was something very interesting for us to do in the short. The short story itself is a bit more, it feels a bit more slice of life almost, just this person kind of just moving through the environment, and it feels a little bit more numb to what's happened to him. And I thought we had an opportunity to just expand that a little bit, and just take a little bit more of a look at what was happening, and how you react to that, and how you push forward through that, and how a lot of people try to endure and survive through an environment like that. And then, of course, there was just also the amount of time it took us to develop the look for the three people. That was something which was very involved process. We have some fantastic people, like production designer, costume designer, makeup artist, Beth and Rachel and Tabitha, just really tremendous, and my cinematographer Yenny, all that team were really crucial to make the film and make it feel crucially believable, because it was something where there's a potential, and Max kind of touched on this before, for it to feel almost too attractive an idea. Our initial designs were a little bit more leaning towards magical realism, and kind of a bit almost sort of a Del Toro flavor to it, and we brought it back to something a lot more grounded, because it needed to be something where you could see someone from a distance, and it might be almost appealing, this idea of a man tree, but then when you get closer, you see kind of the blood that's running beneath the bark.
Yeah, the designs really sell it nicely. And it's the potency of having the lead be a propaganda filmmaker who's complicit in this kind of a system, while being incredibly aware of and having a strong point of view against it. I mean, it speaks to the ways that people could be involved with terrible things and negotiate with themselves every step of the way to be able to live with their choices.
Yeah,
it's a powerful film. It's really strong.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of bargaining going on with a lot of the characters in the film. They're all kind of almost checking in on each other about how are you doing, how are you getting through this, and like these sort of little brief windows of humanity that they're kind of finding in these snatched moments.
The touch of the kids carving into the wife's I guess leg branch. I don't know what it would be referred to in the film's world. Was that yours, or did that come from the original novel?
So
that's ours, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an amazingly cruel touch that really grounds the humanity. I mean, for me.
This idea of her kind of actually, like, obviously the kids kind of throwing stuff at her, but her actually doing that kind of carving, or trying to get a little bit of that autonomy, like control back, like I've done this to myself kind of thing, was sort of there with her, I think. Was something that we wanted to put in there. It wasn't in the original short story, which was a little more bleak, I think. If ours actually makes it more bleak, because now it's kind of sad. But I think when someone has that control taken away from them, and you want to do anything to take something back, to like make a little bit of a stand, and I think for that character of Mari, she is someone who is always going to make a stand and to have that kind of a level of, to be outspoken, even if, you know, her normal voice is silenced. And I think that was something that was really important for both of us, right, Tony?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things that we wanted to give her a bit more agency, because again, it's you know, it's a difficult role for her to have. And we kind of adjusted a little bit of her character from the short story, where she was a bit more just of an outspoken wife. We wanted to, you know, she has her own life, and again, we have only limited time for that. But what I really like in her, you know, changing this initial wound into those initials, it essentially, you know, it's a form of protest. You know, so one of her final acts is a protest, and hopefully that's something as well. In that moment when Tom sees it again, it will hopefully inspire him to find a way through this system. We don't know how he'll do that, but hopefully it will help him endure somehow. So I think, you know, that's kind of the ultimate thing we're trying to get there for it. So yeah, don't want it to be too bleak, because I think, you know, again, it's one of those situations where we want people to feel like, you know, that it isn't hopeless. There are opportunities to fight back, even if it is just on a very personal level.
And maybe small acts of resistance are just as important, I think, you know, than these big kind of huge gestures, something that's small.
Absolutely. So Carlo, the recycling man.
It's actually interesting because I had the idea for the recycling man in Canada, in Vancouver. I moved to Vancouver, yes, with my wife. She was doing a PhD at UBC, and we had to find an apartment. And I didn't know that Vancouver was such a tough real estate market. And at the end, we found a building, a very old building. And they made us sign a contract that we would have never been able to have children in the building. The reason why was because it's pretty normal in Vancouver, because they want a huge turnover of tenants, and they don't want to, you know, people be stuck in the building, because the British Columbia laws are so pro-tenant rather than pro-landlord.
So that's their way to have to get away from grandfather clauses, to guarantee that people are gonna outlive their places the minute they want to have kids.
Exactly.
That's incredible. I've never heard of that before. That's insane.
Me neither.
We don't do that in Quebec, to my knowledge.
It will be prohibited in Europe as well.
It should be.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
So I was
bad enough. Sorry, go ahead.
No, to me, it was a cultural shock, but even a very interesting situation, because there was this old building full, and it was in I don't know if you've probably been in Vancouver. So
actually not, weirdly enough.
You've never been. Okay, so the university in Vancouver is in the nicest and the most expensive area of town, which is called Kitsilano. So it's even more, if you want to have a place close to campus, it's even more difficult. So anyway, it was really interesting because the building was old and it was full of old people, lonely people, because of course, you know, no children, no minors, and the apartments are so expensive that they were like choosing to stay there without children, you know, to keep the apartment. So I was, you know, my wife was working. I was, you know, in my room always, you know, writing. And there was this guy, this young, very young guy, I mean, in his 20s, coming to recycle the garbage. And I was amazing because one day these two very old people that, you know, they had this apartment in one of the most beautiful location of town, so they should have been happy. They saw this guy that was a garbage man, and of course he's not the most posh job in the world.
Sure.
But the guy was very, very way happier than they were. So, and I don't know, I had the idea, so boom, boom, boom. and I wrote the short at 2 a.m. and then, but, you know, so many things came into it. So I wanted to talk about, you know, the idea. To me, it was so powerful that it's not only about overpopulation. We saw overpopulation in science fiction before. It was about the idea of finding a sustainable way of living the world and recycling also ourselves, also, you know, our children. And so a lot of things came to my mind, and with my co-writer, who is Giovanni Gualdoni, is a very famous comic book writer here in Italy. Is the one that wrote Dylan Dog, Martin Mister, and so we wrote a full a Bible for a series, and so we used the short as a short, so I think it works as a standalone piece, but it's also a proof of concept for a television series.
Excellent. And it bears mentioning also Georgina, A Girl on the Moon, as well, as a proof of concept for a longer series you mentioned earlier. And so that was between all of us. So I want to make sure it's public for the audience as well, because that is great news. So do you want to talk about the castings? You landed on some really, really noteworthy actors for a short film.
Let me congratulate also let me congratulate everybody. I'm also a huge fan, by the way, of Paprika and The Girls Who Leapt Through Time, so that's why maybe I connected a lot with yours. Very good job. But let me also congratulate Johnny for his casting. Amazing actress, really, and he was saying, it was interesting to me because he was saying, there was COVID, so we had to cast online. For me, as you can hear by my, you're all Anglo speaker all over the world. I am not, as you can hear, but for me, bringing those actors from England and from the US to Italy, it was very hard, and there was no COVID because we shoot exactly like 6 months before the war ended. And I had to do the cast still online because even without COVID. So I
geography.
Geography. So I saw them on Skype. The connections weren't even pretty good. And then they came on set and we shoot. We didn't have not even a day to rehearse. So
and they're dealing with special effects, gigantic sets.
Yeah, it actually is not. It was done with a very minimal budget. It took me 5 years to do it, just to find the location. I scouted.
So written at 3 a.m. and then 5 years to make.
Yes, 5 years to make. Yeah, absolutely. I tried to do it in Canada at the beginning, in Vancouver. I was working in Vancouver. I knew a lot of special effect people there. So I tried, but we weren't able to find the location. So I moved to Los Angeles because initially the idea was to set the series in Los Angeles. And I found a suitable location, but it was too expensive. I don't know if you know, Los Angeles is crazy, like 20,000 per day. And then I moved to London. And I found two wonderful producers in London. They wanted to do it, but it wasn't a good fit for London because as you saw, it is very hot weather kind of it's not London. So at the end, I found the location in Rome, where I am right now, and I mean in my country. I never expected to find the location in my country, and we use that location. Everything that you see in the movie is on location. Everything is real, and so
you just dress pre-existing structures.
We didn't dress anything. Let me tell you, it's crazy. But that location, we can do a movie about it. That location is an abandoned factory that was occupied by almost 100 families, coming from all over Europe. Not only Europe, migrants family. A lot of them, they were coming also from Syria, from dangerous places in the world. There were Gypsies families, Italian families, Chilean families, Peruvian families. All wonderful people that they came to this place. They occupied the factory, and the owner of the factory, even if he didn't, use the factory for 20 years, he wanted to evict them. So artists from all over the world, especially from Canada, they came to the factory and started to build installations and sculptures and graffiti arts. Some of the most famous graffiti artists in the world. So now the Ministry of Culture, it's difficult to evict them because their house became a museum, an open air museum. So I didn't dress anything. It was already like that. I know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we've only got about 20 minutes left, unfortunately. But what I like to do in group Q&As, It's a tacky question, but it brings out the best stories. If we could start with Team FREYA, if you can each tell us your best and most challenging moment making your film.
You want to start, Camille?
How long you got? I mean, there's so many. Okay. You know what? I think nobody could have anticipated just how hard it would be to do post during the pandemic, right at the beginning of the pandemic. Before, because we're all just grappling, trying to figure out how to do it. And honestly, I didn't start shitting on myself massively. I mean, I didn't stop shitting on myself until I read an article that Denis Villeneuve was having a hard time finishing Dune remotely. And I was like, oh, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
Not just me. Because we're creatures of energy. And when you're not in that room together, when you can't just ask to, when you can't feel the music and you can't feel the sound and you can't feel the cut, it's hard to feel the cut when you're like sharing a Zoom screen or just editing remotely as well. Luckily, our editor and my longtime collaborator, who very quickly became a longtime collaborator, Dave Titus, he's amazing. He like saved our film because he just has so many amazing VFX skills. And so anyway, he swooped in at the last minute and basically was able to just add the finishing touches on a lot of our VFX. And it was actually a lot of the things that he just like put in as placements from the beginning, like all of the interfaces on mirrors. And he was just like, oh, so how's this? And then we ended up keeping it for the whole film. We're like, oh yeah, nice. How's this? It's perfect. That's how it is.
It's final.
Yeah, exactly. And so like we had certain, team members who were able to alleviate that pressure a little bit in terms of post, but it was really difficult to get it all to like, it just took more time. And now, of course, I've made another film since then, and I'm
cool.
just going into making another film soon. And it's like, okay, now we have the structure to be able to, we know now what we didn't know we didn't know.
Yeah.
And so that was tough. Like, we had like 6 months of post, about 6, right, Rhona? About 6 months? Maybe 5.
That's
yeah.
spot on, yeah.
Yeah, we shot in January. We shot in January like 2 weeks or about a few weeks before lockdown.
So January 2020.
Yeah, January 2020.
Wow.
And we consider a few times pushing it a little bit because there's always that little bit. Oh, can we just push it? Give ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And thank God
5 more weeks and it would have been pushed a year and a half.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that did happen to a few of our Harold Greenberg other films at the time, just because they had originally planned to shoot in March or whatever, and then they had to wait a whole year. And we were just very, very fortunate. But yeah, that post was tough. We went in all gung-ho, like, yeah, let's do this. And then it got harder and harder. But hopefully we can look back one day and be like, we came out victorious, perhaps. Who knows? It's tough.
Yeah, victorious, definitely. I mean, the film plays beautifully.
What about you, Rhona?
Best moment, I'm not sure. There were so many joyful things. I mean, even just getting the funding was such a big deal. Like, I loved getting to call Camille and Athena and tell them that we had the funding. And I think it was a pretty special moment hearing Alicia read for the voice of FREYA. The first moment that I heard her bring my words to life felt pretty special. And because they'd been living in my head for so long, and she was one person that I had in mind for that role. And I was hoping that Camille would love her as much as I did.
She was our first audition. And then
she was the first audition to listen to, and then we just
get her out of our head.
Yeah. We couldn't get her voice out of our head. And then there's one funny story that we thought was going to be challenging, but then wasn't that hard. We wrote a film that had dick pics in it, and Kristen Stilling and Athena Russell, our producers, really wanted to make sure we did everything by the book. So we needed release forms. We couldn't just Google dick pics and whack them in our film. So Yeah, it's pretty fun, unique filmmaking challenge to acquire dick pics with signed release forms.
Yeah, E&O
we
for
thought
dick pics. I'd never actually considered that would be a thing.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be hard, but no, turns out we had like 8 photos and signed release forms within like 2 days. we had
I just want to say, I wish that I had the confidence that dudes had about their dicks. That's all I'm saying.
Right. It was such a revealing moment of the difference in, some of the differences between men and women. Like, wow, I just, yeah, it was very revealing in more ways than one.
I love that, all those beats with the reviews, by the way, just as you're talking about that sequence. It's a really strong moment.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you guys have seen Upload, but they have a sort of similar moment in one of their app scenes, and I was like, oh man. And then it's funny how these themes come up in our collective consciousness, just like you could see these themes come out in this screening block. That opening shot of Mark II has a smart toothbrush, and I was like, oh my God, nothing I write is original. Fuck. But no, you're
observing. I mean, you're all writing what you're observing and feeling and connecting with.
Yeah,
we do have electric toothbrushes in our lives, and we imagine what the next step will be because they get upgraded with unnecessary Bluetooth functionality and all kinds of weird things. So
yeah, and one thing that Camille and I talked a lot about was this kind of apathy that we have towards signing our rights and our, T's and C's. And
absolutely.
Yes, accept, scroll, accept. Like, have you ever read the terms and conditions for anything?
No one has, because they're literally constructed to be 90,000 screens of text. It's like a mountain nobody can climb. You'd have to put aside a whole weekend to accept the terms and conditions. So it's set up that way. And we all know that there's vulnerability. We can be signing away, our entire creative legacies for all we have no idea. Yeah. And yet we do it with every app that we take. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for me.
Right. Cheers. Brett, Mark II.
Yeah, so funny story about that toothbrush. It wasn't supposed to be a smart toothbrush. We were supposed to just connect it to, just make it look retro future by connecting it to a wire. That was the talking toothbrush was like a post-production choice because we needed a reason for him to basically hate his life more. So
the wire is a great idea, like an old VCR remote.
Yeah, exactly.
So great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I loved a lot of things about our production. One being just the writing process with my buddy Pride. I mean, I love the process. The day of the shoot, it's a lot of fun and everything, but if you're not having fun those 2 years coming up to it, like, it's not worth it, man. But I think the best thing, the biggest thing that I loved about my production was working with John Ennis. I talked a little bit about kind of building up to the short film. I watched his work, and he over exceeded my expectations when I worked with him on set. He really spoiled me in terms of giving him direction. I could give him a result, and he could give me that result instead of giving him like an action verb. And it just, I hope that one day work with an actor as talented as him. And he was just like fun and infectious on set. He was just a ball of fun. The worst thing on set, or the worst thing about the production, was probably the robot. For some reason, like, that was, the robot was, I think, so obvious that we overlooked it. It was like a week before production and we didn't have a robot made. And so we scrambled. It's so stupid. It should have been the first thing we made. But we scrambled and we found a fabricator named Parsa, and he was able to, within a week, print out a robot. And, you know, the night before I stayed up until 3 a.m. to get the motors working. They weren't working from the remote, so I had to hardwire it to a battery. It was just a nightmare. And then in post-production, we added VFX for like the iris so that we could give him some like expression. And we just, I just thought that like the robot would just look good with the lens, like a practical lens like on set, but nope, it looked like crap. So our amazing VFX team were able to add some magic to it. So I'm really glad they pulled that off. And I'll also add, I don't know about you guys, but after shooting, like I get like really depressed, and like it's so hard to keep I don't know, at least for me, to keep being inspired after the shooting process. So the editing process took a long time, longer than I wanted.
I just want to say I love like what you said about like that indescript era, and I think you guys like nailed it, because I actually wrote down, I was like, oh, Blade Runner, Fifth Element, that like steampunk-esque within this over there, and then like the futuristic VFX. Like I think you guys nailed it. I really loved it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
And you're not the only one that gets depressed post-shoot.
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to comment on that.
Yeah,
that's why I left it paused for it, didn't jump in.
Because it's this big high that so many people come together, all these resources, all donating their time and effort, and you get everybody on set. It's such a team effort, and then it just nothing afterward. You're left with I don't know. Maybe you guys deal with it some other way that I don't know, but yeah,
there's nothing more ghostly than going to a location site, especially if it's a place that you were shooting on for weeks and weeks, and then going back and just seeing it completely, like no energy, no personalities, all those voices and people are gone. It's just a big empty space.
Oh, there's one voice. It's your own.
Yes,
shooting,
that's true.
Shooting, and maybe your like first festival where you're like, oh my God, am I crazy? Like I just pulled all these people together. Like, what if it all falls apart? Am I nuts? And you live through that for like all of it until it resonates somewhere, right? And then you're like, oh thank God, okay, I'm not crazy.
Long time holding your breath.
Okay, Georgina.
So we didn't have that problem of like waiting around and like not losing that energy, because the best things and the worst things about our film were the same thing, and it was the technology. So we were funded by Epic Games. This was an initiative that Epic Games brought to Australia for the first time, and they're going to take it to other countries, and it was called the Unreal Engine Short Film Initiative. And we had this concept for The Girl on the Moon for a TV series, and we applied for this because we thought great way to make a proof of concept. So like 400 applications, and we were one of the 16 selected, and we were like, wow, this is amazing. Oh my God, we've got $20,000 to make our film. And then we realized we had to learn about the Unreal Engine, which is just this whole new way of working. I don't know if you guys have seen The Mandalorian, but they're trying to bring this gaming technology into the screen industry at a very appropriate time in the world when we can't travel to the locations we want to go to. So we are in Canberra. It's the national capital, but it's only really a town of like 400,000 people. So we don't have a lot of studios, and we certainly don't have massive LED screens. So we had to invent something. So we contacted an events company who do screens for like big events, and we spent a couple of weeks negotiating with them to get those for free, almost for free. And so then we had to find a soundproof space, and we found 7.5 by 7.5 meter space, and we had the screen set up, and we set up our 2 locations. Oh, by the way, we had 6 weeks to make this film. 6 weeks from yes, you're successful to please deliver us a short film, which could be no longer than 5 minutes. And so we had to distill our TV series into 5 minutes. So we spent 3 weeks of that 6 weeks on the script, because to me that is the most important thing, while our little techno geeks were creating virtual environments for us, and then we all came together. So in this world of the Unreal Engine, it's all fix it and pre, right? You don't do post, you shoot your screen and it's burnt in, and you're like, oh my God, this is like terrifying. There's no green screen options to change things. We are shooting on the day, and it's week 4 at this point. Well, yep. And what if this goes terribly wrong? We can't change it. So we came on the day. You have to, I don't know if anyone's used this technology before, you've got to scan the space. So it recreates your physical set in a digital world. So we're in this tiny little space with a physical set. So we have a moon colony set, and we had a beach set. So we had to truck in all the sand and create a beach, and make it look real. And we'd never done this before. So we scanned the room, and our little computer setups in the corner of the room, and the camera appears like magically in your digital space. But sometimes it disappears. So you're all ready to have a shot. My husband's the cinematographer. He's been a cinematographer for 30 years, and he'd never dealt with this before. So he's ready to shoot, and the guys are like, we can't see the camera. And we're like, oh, okay, reboot the computer. So they got to reboot the backgrounds, and it was just a totally extreme, steep learning curve. But to have our vision, like, then there it is. Oh my God, it does look like she's like on the moon, and there is the Earth, and she's looking out the window, and it's its own lighting source. So there's this massive Earth, maybe slightly oversized to what it would be in the real world. And it forms the light source, and it was just magic and beautiful. And it was our vision come to life and delivered in 6 weeks. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Was your young lead, was she comfortable working with all the tech around her and all the delays and just strange energies that would cause for a performance?
She was not a professional actor. She had shot one short film when she was 7, like 10 years ago, and she had done a bit of modeling, and she was wanting to get back into film. And we found her very late in the piece. It's obviously working in a pandemic, as we all know, it's really hard to do casting, but we needed Indigenous cast. So that added an extra level of complexity. And we couldn't get people that we wanted from Melbourne, because Melbourne was in lockdown. And so that was very challenging. So we found the mother first, and she put a call out through her networks to find Akiva. And we just allowed them to be in this cocoon. So they did some rehearsals on Zoom, and then they came into the space, and we just tried to leave them on their own as much as we could to build this mother-daughter relationship and just have their own space. And it was just beautiful. She was just mentored by this other actress, and we just tried not to get in their way. It was very difficult in a tiny, tiny space, but they would then just bring it, this beautiful contained energy.
That's fantastic. Thanks. So Joanny.
Yeah, I'm echoing what pretty much everybody has said. I think one of the best part is when everything kind of comes together on set. You take a step back. I mean, I don't know if you guys did, but at some point I took a step back and I was like, oh, it's working. Everything is as we wanted it to be. And Sarah is delivering, and Jacob, the DP, is killing it. The whole crew is amazing. And so when it's flowing like this, it's really enjoyable. And we needed that because we only had one night. The worst part is that it almost did not happen because we set up everything, we block the first shot, we light the scene. And the last thing we had to do was to turn on the monitors to add the backgrounds on set, on all those computers in the background. And we realized we didn't have any power strips. So that sounds really stupid compared to Georgina's story about Unreal Engine and all that stuff. But all we needed was power strips, and we didn't have them for some reason. So
and you had this one night.
We had one night. So we were in this big corporate office. So we considered breaking into one of the offices next door to pull them. But eventually we found like a Home Depot was open like for another 30 minutes. So we sent out a PA like on a mission to just rush and get those power strips. She got stuck in a protest on the way there. So during that 45 minute window, I don't know. I was just like, I don't know what to do at this point. We'll wait, or we'll break into an office and see what happens. Yeah. So Casey got the power strips. We were able to do all that stuff with a late start, but we finished on time somehow too. So yeah, that was definitely one of those moments where you're like, why am I doing this? I don't need this amount of stress, but that's fine. Worked out at the end. And yeah, also just to echo what Brent said, I do feel completely empty as well at the end of a shoot. I just don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, all right, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But getting it to see the first cut and people's reaction is always like super gratifying. So that's partially also why we do that stuff. So yeah, that was about it.
All right, thanks. Max, Tony.
Max, you want to go?
Oh
no,
yeah,
okay. We're both being overly polite, I think. Okay, so I think it's always really, really exciting to see the projects come together as a writer. So to see things on its feet, I think some of the most amazing things as part of Standing Room was seeing some of the production design work really come together, seeing that kind of final shot of the tree that Mari has become in the garden, that kind of going up, and having known Bethan, who kind of worked on this, and Rachel and Tabitha, the sort of production design team, kind of putting all of this work together, was so incredible to see something that was in our heads and we'd seen, we're trying to work out how that was going to be visualized, and then it came together, and that was really, really fantastic. And I think for me as a writer, every time I hear something that I've written actually come out loud, I'm always a bit like, oh my god, this is incredible. It's so nice to see it come to life and take on something else, and to see what somebody else does with it, and for it to become something more. I think that's the most beautiful thing about film, right? It isn't just our one person's work, it's the kind of collaboration, and because of that collaboration, everything is so much better than one person can imagine. Trying to think of for me what was quite interesting and challenging about this, as I mentioned earlier, is working on some of that translation of the screenplay. And I was doing a PhD at the time, which I've now finished, and a friend of mine was doing a PhD in linguistics, and she is Japanese. So while I was writing the kind of final edits of my PhD, I was sitting in a room with Miyuki, who was translating the script, and she kept asking me these really insightful questions about why did you choose particular words for the translation? So what is the kind of tone going on there? Because of the way that the Japanese works, I can understand Japanese way better than I can write it in any way, shape or form. But trying to kind of get the nuance of the ending of a word so that it would actually capture what's really going on in that made me think about my choice of language in a way I'd never done before. I don't know if writers have had this experience where someone is asking you on such a granular level about why you've chosen particular words, and then trying to think of, well, what's going on here, what's the underlying themes, and thinking about the work that Tony and I had done and how that had then kind of worked into that final script and how that could be translated was challenging. It made me kind of question a lot of things that I'd done and then kind of come back around. So that was one of those interesting challenges of of the process. Over to you, Tony.
Thanks. I think it's interesting when I think on this, because it feels like for a longest time, most of making this film was not easy. There's a huge amount of challenges along the way, just getting the rights, developing the screenplay upon getting the rights, developing the look of the tree people, and trying to schedule around that. We had to delay the shoot because we had to make sure we could take the time to properly develop it and not rush it. I didn't want to shoot and the designs weren't ready. Trying to raise the budget and not being able to raise the budget, having to self-fund it, having to do a lot of things in terms of having to kind of basically marshal the project ourselves. And I think
so
you're probably
trying to get the first day of shooting in before the option ran out.
Oh yeah,
we had a really tight option on it.
Yeah, we had to be shooting by a certain date, so that was a big thing, which was on the clock. We needed to make sure we had enough time to develop everything, make sure the production design was ready, and have enough time feasibly for having to fabricate everything. But we had to be shooting by a certain date as well. Then the first day we were shooting, it was torrential rain, so we had to reshoot that. And then I think probably one of the trickiest days was one of our critical shoot days. This landowner tried to extort me and tried to block our shoot. We had full permission to be shooting there. We had full council permission. We had all approvals. Then this person who lived next to where we were shooting decided that this public path belonged to him, and then was trying to block the shoot. And so I had to basically fight them off, because we couldn't afford to go back. We couldn't afford to reshoot. It had to be that day, because it's coming out of our own pockets. So just a lot of little issues in having to complete the film ultimately in post during pandemic. I never want to do a grade online again. Like it's no way to vet your grade doing that online.
Yeah. Even if your display is calibrated, if everyone's looking at a different display in their own spaces. It's so problematic. But the thing which made it all work, and which was consistently the best thing about the film, was the cast and crew. It's without doubt the best cast and crew I've ever had the privilege to work with. Just everyone really just over delivered for me, really went above and beyond, really really pushed themselves, and really worked to the resources that we had, and really just produced some wonderful work. And I've mentioned the art team as well, but the camera team, the sound team, just everyone on a crew side, and as well the cast, Anton, Yuri, Joe and Andy, all just delivered really wonderful performances. And that was something which was really great, seeing Yuri and Tom read together for the first time, and that we had managed to get a read through for the final scene, and just seeing that the relationship was going to work, the emotion was going to work. And that was always critical, given you have quite a hyper-real setting that it's in. And it's one of those things, if you pitch this idea of a world of people being turned into trees, it is kind of an oddball pitch in of itself, so it has to make sure that it's going to work on a human level as well. And I owe a lot of that working to the cast, really bringing that to life. So it's kind of one of those things that the whole production felt difficult, but at the same time it was a wonderful experience with the people I got to make it with. Excellent, thanks. Carlo.
I don't know where to start. I should just say, don't do this at home, because it was everything went bad with the production. To create this kind of visual world with the budget that we had, it was crazy, completely crazy. We really, I really don't know where to start. We had everybody against us. It was just at the end, it was just me and my wife that were still believing in the project. And let me tell you also that Italy is a little bit different in regards to genre than Anglo-Saxon speaking country, the Anglo-Saxon, let's say, market, American Anglo-Saxon market. Because in Italy, we were like 40 years ago, paradoxically, Italy was very good for genre, but not now.
60s and 70s Italian genre films changed the world.
Absolutely. I didn't want to say that. You said that.
It's 100% true, though. I mean, Mario Bava for just influence absolutely everything, right down to the look of the modern music video. I mean, you think about Mario Bava, and he's one of the gods of cinema language.
Mario Bava, Lucio Fulci, Sergio
Oh yeah, Fulci Argento, of course.
Dario Argento. I've met Dario Argento many times. Sergio Leone, of course. Marco Ferreri, Elio Petri. I can go on and on and on. Mm-hmm. But then I don't know what happened. I know, but we don't have the time for that. So let's say that a virtual atomic bomb fell on Italy, and we kind of lose all the genre filmmaking. We weren't able to build an industry out of it. And now things are changing. Is coming back. There are a lot of very, very good young directors that are going back to genre. But
the financing is there again, a little bit.
There is financing, absolutely. We had a lot of success with different type of, with non-genre. Even if I hate the genre, non-genre, divide, I really hate it. I believe that every movie is genre. And
cinema is cinema.
Cinema is cinema. Genre
if you love
is
films.
Exactly. Genre is a very stupid word. It's not a word for filmmakers. It's a word for distributors, for other people. Yeah.
But we all have to use it in a sense as a descriptor. But it's incredibly. How about elevated genre, which is the most? I mean, the only people who ever use terminology like that are people who piss on the genre. We think that that fantasy filmmaking is a step above pornography.
That's exactly what happened in Italy and also in other European countries, that you started to, the reason why I hate the word genre, because when you start to use the word genre, it means that there is something that is non-genre. So you start to divide the industry. So genre is something, and then there is non-genre, which is the author kind of movie, which is terrible, because we all know that Hitchcock was genre. David Cronenberg, to stay in Canada, was genre.
Of course, Nicholas Rowe, Ken Russell. I mean, it's only ignorant people who say this. And again, when people try to say elevated genre was born from an elevated place. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It was feminist literature before the term existed. Absolutely. I mean, it's just astonishing. It's really an ignorance thing.
Actually, I'm one of the people that believe that Mary Shelley created that night, that it was a competition between
with Lord
Byron and her husband, and she created science fiction. I mean, that was the first real science fiction thing that we can call science fiction. Anyway, so to do something like this in Italy, it was really, 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 crazy, difficult, still very difficult, because nobody is really, I mean, the majority of people that they won't understand you, and so for me, even if I had all the troupe, all the cast, all the the technical troupe was Italian, only the cast was not Italian, and the director of photography, which is very good, was very good. Alejandro Chavez is from Mexico, but still, it was very, very hard to find people that believed in a genre project in Italy. So for me, it was twice a win. It was a double win, because I think we did good, but also we were able to do a genre thing in a place where if you do genre, you are an outsider. So, I mean, God bless the outsiders from all over the world.
Can I ask something? As we're talking about genre having more opportunities again in Italy, we're seeing Dario, of course, is having a great year. He's in the new Gaspar Noé film, and Black Sunglasses has been fully financed. Wild Bunch are behind it. So it's going to be made on a scale that he hasn't worked on in quite some time. Do you know if Sergio Martino is still alive and very, very sharp? Do you know if anyone's trying to make a film with him right now?
I don't know, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think not either. It's just bizarre, because he's one of the last of the old guard, and he's quite a visionary. I mean, it's just weird that he's there, and no one seems to be reaching out.
But
Anyways,
you
it's
know,
just-
the best thing that we had that you of course are aware of is the remake of Suspiria by Luca Guadagnino. Which you know, I think it was I know the production company very well, and it was a very good operation because it brought back that Italian style to genre, and with a new eye, which is Guadagnino eye, which you know is very interesting. We also had Gomorra. I don't know if you're aware of it. So Sollima did the second one of Sicario, and now it will do probably the Call of Duty movie, which is not so stylish, but still. I know, but for us, it's still a huge thing because at least we can get some young blood into genre once again. But let
bring
me
back the Polischetti films.
Yeah, but since you know you were referring to Martino, but let me give you a name that you know you should follow because I think it's very good. I don't know if you heard about this young director. His name is Gabriele Mainetti. It did They Call Me Jig, which is
yes, of course. We played They Call Me Jig a couple of years ago.
Okay,
and
so
we were going after. He has this giant scale action film, Monsieur, a futuristic action film.
No, it's not futuristic. It's the Second World War. So is
it? Okay, I'm sorry. No one's seen it yet, but that was.
It's gonna be premiered at Venice this year, so he's in the competition at Venice, and it's called Freaks Out.
Right.
And it's a completely, you know, crazy operation because it's a big budget, very, very high budget. Is inspired by Freaks, by the original.
The Todd Browning film Freaks?
Absolutely.
Transposed to World War II?
Exactly. The story is, you know, Rome get liberated by the Americans from the Nazi occupation. And it tells the story of these circus freaks with kind of superpowers fighting the Nazi, but they're real freaks, like the one. So it's interesting. It's very, you know, I think very in line with the Fantasia philosophy, and for me, and he's a very rebellious kind as well. Everybody was against him too. He's older than me. He tried many times. We tried for 20 years, and everybody was really, really against him. But then he succeeded. So, I mean, even in places where genre is not a big thing, we can still, you know, free our imagination. Because to me, as you know, a lot of people said before me, the only way to portray reality is portraying it in an unrealistic way. That's the only way to reach reality. If not, if you just photograph reality, you kind of lose it in the lenses. That's what I like to say. So go for genre. and thank you for having us and the recycling.
So on that note, I really hate to do this because I'd love for this to go on much, much longer. We don't even have time for a proper Q&A for audience questions, but thank you very, very much for joining us, everybody. And I want this to go on for another half hour. But thank you very much. I want to see everything that all of you make in the future. And stay in touch. Be well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Such a pleasure.
Really great meeting, everybody. Go
Bye.
movies.
Such a pleasure.